Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. And if this is your first time here, welcome. This is Essential Patience and I am Patience. In today's video, I'll be giving you a comparison of what an income problem is versus a spending problem. These are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but there are some differences that we can analyze to ensure that we can identify in ourselves. Do we have an income problem or do we have a spending problem? And with that, we can start being real with ourselves and putting ourselves on the path towards financial success and financial freedom. We're going to start with an analysis of what an income problem looks like, and then what a spending problem looks like. And in the end, we'll draw some conclusions. Number one of knowing you have an income problem is making below the median individual income in the United States or median household if you are in a household with a family. This is the sad truth, but the median individual income for men and women in the United States are below $40,000 a year. And in today's world, especially with inflation, that is just not enough for most people to live. And a lot of people surviving on this income are living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes even drowning in debt with no way to save and really losing hope. This may be even more drastic depending on which state and city you live in. For example, you might be making $60,000, and that's great money if you're in the middle of Idaho, but living in California, that's below the poverty line. And try surviving in New York City on $40,000. That's almost impossible. In cities like Massachusetts, it's also almost impossible to survive on that amount. And these cities are becoming more and more common. The best way to find out if you have an income problem is to research what is the average and median income with people who live around you. If your income seems to fall in the upper 25%, I would say you don't have an income problem really. And if your income falls below 50%, I would say yes, you have an income problem. Number two of knowing that you have an income problem is not bringing home enough money to cash flow throughout the month. If you have to rely on payday loans, which sometimes can be very predatory, or supplement your income with credit cards and personal loans, you may not be making enough money. Which leads to number three, the numbers don't just add up. There is no way you can survive on this income, especially after taxes and Social Security and Medicare tax. You make a budget with your rent, your utilities, your food, your transportation, and the numbers are just coming out negative. There's no way you can squeeze every single penny out of that budget and somehow you just end up in the negative. Then you have an income problem. We always try to ensure that our budget can fit within our income, but sometimes, again, if you're making very little in a very expensive city or just inflation happened, it is very difficult and challenging to accomplish it. Number four of having an income problem might be that you are not working full time. It is very difficult to make a living wage in the United States without working full time for most people. While it's not for everybody, I know people are traveling and working 5 hours a day. You know, you see that on Instagram and all the social medias. People work 3 hours a day and 1 hour a day and they survive, and or even working 10 hours a week and they're surviving just fine. But for most people, for the average person, not working full-time is not a good idea. The minimum wage in the United States is actually $7.25. And while this is slightly higher in expensive cities that go up to $12, $15, that's because the city is very expensive. So if you're not working full-time, for most people cannot survive working only part-time and living a comfortable life. And number five of knowing if you have an income problem is that you can't save. And you can't save because you just don't have enough money left at the end of each month to go towards a savings account. It is really sad that a lot of people don't save, but sometimes it's because people can't save. And if you have an income that is so little that you're barely able to cover your expenses, I'm sure the last thing in your mind is, well, can I max out my Roth IRA? How am I saving for retirement? So if you're having a job and you're in an income bracket that restricts you from saving for the future, for saving for retirement, which hopefully would come, you have an income problem, which means that you have to find different methods to increase your income. While there is no one size fit all, sometimes we just break our budget down to the bare minimum and we still can't cover it. So the best way to do it is to find a way to increase your income, to ensure that you have a margin, so that when one thing falls apart, your entire life does not go crumbling down. It is much easier to survive losing your job if you have an emergency fund than to have nothing, living paycheck to paycheck, and you get laid off. Analyze your situation and ask yourself, do you have an income problem? Now let's head on to spending problem to see the difference. A good way to start asking yourself, do I have a spending problem, is to look at the stats again. Do you make more than the median individual income for a household or for a person? If so, where do you live? And what is the comparison of your salary to the people around you? And if you make in the upper percentiles, you might be on a good place. And if you make below, then you're in the income problem category. But as long as you're making a comparable salary and able to live a comfortable life, then we can go on to the next step of to see if you're having a spending problem. Number 2 is you can save, but you don't. So this is very different from somebody who's living paycheck to paycheck because their salary just doesn't cover their basic necessities. It's not because they're going to Bali and Cancun on a vacation, but you instead are doing the exact same thing and not saving. But you can afford it. You can afford it. Same way you can afford to save, but you choose not to. You know, because of YOLO, FOMO, and all that going on. But you're able to live an enjoyable life, not saving, but you're spending on all these things that you don't need. Then you have a spending problem. Number 3 is spending more than you make. We've already established that you're making a great income, but somehow your lifestyle has been inflated. Like you're driving a Mercedes Benz, buying a mansion, 4-bedroom, 4-bath, going on trips every other weekend, all while making $100,000. And somehow you still can't afford to save because you have a spending problem. So if you're spending more than you make, you're still relying on credit cards while making a great income, is because you're spending too much. Number 4 is that you don't track what you're spending because you feel like you have the money. So you just spending, running up your credit card because you'll get paid and you'll pay it off. But you're not really managing your finances actively. You're just hoping for your paycheck to come in and somehow you will be relieved of all that stress. You're not even stressing. It's like, oh, I'm good. I'm getting my salary. I'm good. But somehow you still have credit card debt. Somehow you're able to live this lavish lifestyle way above your salary. You have a spending problem. For most people, it's hard for them to spend so much money when they're living paycheck to paycheck. It's like they have to track every single penny. But because you don't have to, because you make a great income, well, you don't feel like you have to, and you don't. Which leads to number 5. Some people don't have a budget. Can you believe it's 2020 and some people still don't have a budget? And if you're one of those people, I'm not calling you out, but I'm calling you out low key. How are you managing your finances without a budget? I'm really curious. Do you just get a deposit and mentally subtract things out of your mind and just do it? Like, what is happening? It's really hard to not have a spending problem if you don't have a budget because that money is sitting in your checking account. How are you managing where it's going? You're just relying on the deposits coming to your bank account to pay off your bills, but you don't have a budget. You're not sticking to the budget, which means that you probably don't have some future financial goals that you are actively working towards. If you have a spending problem, the best way to start is to always make a budget. And I also have some videos on my channel that can really help you to save money and to organize your finances if you want to. As the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure. Living oblivious and a blissful life where you are drowning in debt because you make a great salary is really no excuse because it's gonna catch up with you. Most people cannot out-earn their desire for lavish spending. They are the millionaires and billionaires who have gone broke because they spend too much money. If you have a spending problem right now, making more money is not the solution. Getting your impulse purchasing is the solution. So to conclude, if you have an income problem, the best way to start is to make sure that you are managing your finances as best as possible and find different ways to increase your income. On the other hand, if you have a spending problem, it will be very hard to out-earn your desire to spend. So keeping yourself under control and your impulse purchasing under control is the best way to solve your spending problem. The worst combination of this is having a spending problem while having an income problem. Can you imagine? You don't earn enough, but you are just spending money and turning a blind eye to your financial problem. That is not a good combination. But always remember, there is hope. So if you have that problem, you can always start to fix it. And in my personal opinion, most people have a little bit of both. We can all do something slightly better in our finances to really maximize our savings and to control our spending. But the best thing you can do is not to constrict yourself too much and to work with yourself to make sure that you're still living a comfortable life and ability to save. One thing I came to realize is that if you don't solve the root issue of your spending problem, you can live paycheck to paycheck making 6 figures, even 7 figures and more, because there are no shortage of people who still do that, even making great income. So start with the income you have now, work with it, manage it to the best of your ability so that when more money comes, you'll be in a position to manage it even better. And with that, I'm going to end this video. Like this video if it was helpful and leave a comment as to what do you think you have, a spending problem or an income problem, or maybe a little bit of both. Don't we all? If you've not already, please subscribe to my channel and ring the notification bell so that you'll be notified every single time I post a video. Thank you. Stay organized in your finances. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.